This man is about to suicide. He wore on a western suit, skin care, then stick the rope to his neck. After that, he's gonna kick the chair. At that moment, there was a noisy argument outside. He looked out, someone was driving, he got angry, he ran out and criticized, "No driving here." That was the new neighbor, he didn't know the rules, he instructed him, but this driver was too silly. He crashed into the mailbox. He helped to drive to the garage quickly, and walked away. He got home to suicide again. He hung himself again, but the neighbors gathered at the window. A kid ran to see, he quickly took back the rope, so the baby wouldn't panic. His plan failed. This is a famous Swedish movie, A Man Called Ove. It consoled lots of lonely people. If you're dissatisfied with life, I highly recommend this movie. The main character is this old man, Ove. Months ago, his darling wife passed away. He got sacked recently, and felt desperate, so he wanna die. He's a type of North European. He's cold and intolerant. If someone greets him, he would always say that, "Don't make noise." The next day, Ove was more careful. He covered the window with curtain, and put his head through the rope again. Who could know that? Ove didn't care about anything, but the doorbell kept ringing. He angrily opened the door. Oh, two kids. He became normal. Their parents were also there. Their new neighbors. They brought him some foods, and borrowed a ladder. Ove let them take it. Then the old woman next door asked him to fix the heater. They seemed to stop him from suicide. Ove angrily said,
"Nu är det nog! Försvinn härifrån, allihop! Gå hem nu! Försvinn!"
Ove went home. He saw his wife in picture, got broken. He decided to suicide again. This time, he made it. His whole life began to recall like a slow-motion video. From childhood, Ove lost his mother since he was small. He lived on his father. His father didn't talk much. One day, Ove stood on the rail. A train coming from behind. His father screamed loudly. Until Ove stepped out of there, his father picked him up for the first time, and hugged him for long. The love of some men is hidden deep in the heart. Years later Ove grew up. He showed Dad his grade report. Dad was very happy. He showed the report to everyone he met, until he was hit by a train. Life is a joke. Ove was joked again. A governor burnt Ove's house because Ove didn't agree to move. Ove had nowhere to go. He worked and stayed at the rail, and slept there. Unexpectedly, in the worst days of life, he met the most beautiful things. A woman. She wore red high heels, red lipstick, had such blue eyes. She often showed her beautiful white teeth. She looked like an angel when she smiled. She bought all for him, helped him and looked at him closely. Ove used to be stunned, but he knew he loved her. Since then, every day he went of that train at that time. In 3 weeks, finally he met her. In their first date, Ove didn't know how to flirt girls, keeping silent or talking about cars. The girl asked Ove, "Why don't you order some foods?" Ove said, "I ate at home." It turned out he was too poor to pay for both. He told the truth. His house was fired, he had nothing left. Then he intended to leave.
Nu ska jag gå. Tack, det var trevligt.
The girl suddenly kissed him. Ove understood. God sent an angel to him. Back to current time, the rope was cut, he couldn't suicide. Ove decided to use a new way. He borrowed a tube from the old woman next door and repaired her heater. There was a man with calamity in her house. That's Ove's old friend. Ove told him his mind. The world is worse. Human beings are worse. Luckily I'm about to leave this world. The old woman came back and said that, although my husband can't move, he knew everything. Ove was amazed. His old friend pulled him back. This is the holding of a paralyzed person. Very warm. But Ove didn't realize it. He came back home, and tried his 5th time to suicide. He used car gas. Ove whistled. He thought he would succeed. Because this garage was private, no one could come. Ove closed his eyes, but, after a while, someone knocked his door. Ove was angry. The neighbor's husband was injured. She asked Ove to take them to the hospital. Ove had no choice but to agree. He failed one more time. In the hospital, she came to her husband herself, asked Ove to keep an eye on her children. Ove agreed. When the 2 girls were bored, Ove told them stories, and made them laugh. After going home, Ove wanted to leave. Unexpectedly, the children thanked him for staying with them. They also hugged him. He felt very warm. Ove couldn't die today. Next time Ove was experienced, he changed the place to train station. The train was coming, but unexpectedly, a guy was quicker than him. Ove was stunned. He turned around. People around him were very cold. A guy even recorded with a phone. He couldn't accept that. He rushed over and helped the man. The train was closer. Ove was at the rail. It was time. He suddenly saw him of the past. He missed his father. In the end, at that moment, Ove raised his hand. His plan failed one more time. That day, on the way home, he saw a woman with a dog throwing stone on a wild cat. He criticized the woman. "Do that again and your dog'll be in trouble." The dog barked. He imitated it. The woman was sent away. Ove also scared the cat. "Go away." But he didn't dare. He brought some foods to the cat, but didn't see it. Days later, the cat came to his house. Ove and the neighbor took it inside. Because the neighbor's daughter was allergic to cat hair, only Ove was able to raise the cat. Then Ove not only couldn't die, he even had a cat. He came to his wife's tomb and said,
Ja, hon såg ut så här från början, så du ska inte tro att det är jag som har gjort.
But in fact, he took it out for a walk every day, and gave it foods. One day, he saw a neighbor showing his wife how to drive. He suggested to teach the woman. On the street, a guy honked a lot, which panicked the woman. Ove got off and scolded the guy. Later, when the neighbor had to go out, she asked Ove to look after her daughter. Ove walked around. The kids told that their dad couldn't install the dishwasher, so he secretly helped them. At night, the cat slept next to Ove. With these relationships, Ove seemed to have more hope. One day, the neighbor advised him, "You should live on like that." Ove was to get angry and saw a guy in white shirt. That was a governor, who often behaved badly to people and embezzled. He rudely said to Ove, "You were once a troublesome bastard. After your wife's death, you became crazy." Everyone could see through Ove's hurt. He collapsed. He got inside, locked him down. He wanted to suicide again. The seventh time, Ove decided to use a gun. But the cat's looking at him. He switched on the radio, so the cat wouldn't be afraid. He also covered his room to stop the cat from coming in. He pointed the gun to his cheek and then his head. Ove got angry again. He got out with the gun. That was his wife's old student. He begged Ove to accommodate him. He was sent away by his family. Ove criticized, but then let him stay. The next day, the boy cooked breakfast, and also fed the cat. That was the first time Ove had breakfast with another person for half of the year. He wanted to go around. The boy asked to follow. There was also the cat. Then another guy joined. Ove's team grew up. Not long after, Ove got the news that his old friend with calamity was forced to stay in a hospital. Some European hospitals often cheated victims. Ove was off the roof. Although they once had argument, he couldn't ignore, and decided to help. He called many places, also wrote letters, but no answer received. Ove was hopeless. He nearly gave up. Then the neighbor said, "Why don't you look for help? No one could do everything. Like, you can't stand the hurt of your wife's death by yourself." Ove bowed his head. For the first time, he revealed his mind. That year, to congrats on the pregnant wife, they went on a trip. Although being happy, on the way home, they got an accident. He saved his wife, but the two kids passed away. His wife couldn't stand anymore, but she was very brave. She wanted to be a teacher. But schools didn't accept handicapped people. Ove was angry. He reported and struggled for fairness. After his great effort, his wife became a teacher, but she had to take a bad class. However, she was such a good teacher. She taught many things and made students become good citizens. She's an angel. With a paralyzed leg, she could give others much motivation and help them a lot. Then, she died of diseases. Ove became a lonely man. Then, he stood up again, with memories of his wife. He decided to live like a young man, keep trying. The next day, the rest home's man came. While they're satisfied, a reporter came out. "That's who Ove found. I have evidence for your corruption." That guy started to panic. Ove won, thanks to his friend. He had more relationships with others. He didn't want to suicide anymore. Not long after, the neighbor had the fourth child. Ove carried the baby. What he regret was that he had no baby, but now every child could be his child. That's Ove's great love. One day, the neighbor realized that Ove didn't come out to plow snow. They broke into his house, and found him dead on his bed. Ove finally fulfilled his wish, but in a natural way. He used to be a weird man. But that day, people gathered in his house. They came to see him off. In Ove's life, he didn't live for him, he lived for others. They gave him lots of happiness. Thanks to them, life becomes more meaningful.